Alright, so the year was 1999. The internet was a very different place back then. There weren't any social networks, unless you count the seedy internet chat rooms. Email addresses were coveted things that many people paid into as part of their internet service, and search engines were really just in their infancy. Gaming with friends was still mostly a local activity, and though a lot of games technically allowed quite a few online players, it's hard to dismiss that EverQuest stood alone as the first massively successful MMORPG. It's hard to really picture this experience nowadays, so let me paint this out for you. The game had no map. You needed to draw your own, like on paper, at home. You could write down coordinates, but a new player would have to literally practice even the most basic of skills, including sense heading, in order to figure out which way was even north. EverQuest did the opposite of holding your hand. It actively hindered you and forced you to rely on others, meet people, build trust. It's impossible to picture in the modern age having to ask a player in-game where something is and hoping that they've experienced it. You weren't just going to Google the answer or watch a tutorial in 1999. Broadband was rarer. YouTube was still half a decade away. There's really no way to force an experience like this nowadays. There's so much coverage you can practically expect walkthroughs of everything to be available whenever you like. Norath, the land of EverQuest, was marketed as freedom. You could be anything you want to be. Bad, good, craftsman, a warrior, whatever you want. This was more true in my experience here than anywhere else I've ever seen it attempted, simply because everything was designed to be so difficult to master. There was a huge power disparity between the haves and the have-nots. There were entire economies simply based on having higher level magical characters that cast spells on you to run faster, or teleport you, allow you to regenerate, or even summon your corpse. Par for the course for the rest of the experience, death was unforgiving. You needed to be mindful of where your corpse ended up. Requiring you to get your body is now pretty common in a lot of games, but the original EverQuest had no problem leaving your corpse, potentially with like all your money on it, at the bottom of the ocean or something otherwise impossible to reach. In cases like this, you'd actually have to track down someone capable of casting high-level necromancy spells, usually for trade. If this doesn't sound at all bad, allow me to remind you about the facts here. You have no map. You'll be heading back unarmed unless you stashed a set of extra gear. You wouldn't be running back as a ghost. Oh, and death also costs you your experience. You might have even lost a level. And travel, well, travel was a real thing. As in, you'll need to run or walk there. You'll need to wait for a boat and ride it in real time to another continent. In the early days, there was no fast travel points at all, aside from spells of high-level mages, who sold transportation at premium in a lot of areas. But I figure the only way to show you nowadays how immersive this was back then is to immerse you myself. Picture yourself, a young elf born into the tree city of Kelethin. Poor and inexperienced, you make your way into the forests of the Fadar, surrounding the elven city. You creep outward, gaining some early confidence after killing a bat with your bare hands. Soon, you turn around to see the city has disappeared, because it's 1999, and draw distance, well, wasn't great. Panic grips you, and you run. Seeing nothing but trees and the occasional critter for far too long, you suddenly spot a cavern entrance. Everything seems quiet, so you inch closer. For a moment, there's peace. Until you spot a speck on the horizon rushing towards you. But it's a glimmer of hope, another player who might know the way home. You move forward, typing as you go so you can request aid. As you finish, suddenly you realize your friend isn't alone. A number of orcs seem to be chasing him away. Trained, he stops for a moment to type, and then he falls silent, dead on the ground as his pursuers catch up. The orcs stop for a brief moment, but quickly realize your presence and start towards you. Again, panic tears at you and you begin to run in the direction your recently deceased friend was just headed in. Death, now, would effectively start you from scratch. You have everything to lose. Trees, hills, bats. There's no safety in sight and no cease to the orcish pursuit. EverQuest will literally never give up on a chase, and monsters would often trigger other monsters to create these ever-growing trains of death. Unfortunately, though, this lesson is the one you're currently learning right now. Suddenly, and without warning, a damage indicator flashes across your chat bar. An arrow strikes for exceptional damage, and you wince. You look to your health bar. It's full? Your chat indicates that an orc has perished. You can't stop now, though. There's too many. You look again and your combat log shows another clash, but you see and hear nothing but wind and trees. Finally, you decide to turn, with a sour hope that an orc isn't just a step behind you, waiting to smite you down in a single blow. But you see nothing. The pursuit is over. A bare hilltop stands before you. Perhaps now more lost than ever before, but with heart rate returning to normal, you resign yourself to finding home, somehow. You move to turn back, but as you do, an elf stands before you. Posing silently with a full suit of green scale mail, glimmering in splendor despite lacking in polygons, and brandishing twin wakizashis of the frozen skies, you look up and you see his name, HempAvenger. This hero must have been living in the trees here for this purpose. He seems quite experienced to be this close to home. "You're safe," he says, and you read it to yourself as if he said it in a badass superhero tone or something. "Home?" you ask. He turns and points. Not physically with an animation though. It's 1999. The chat says that he pointed, and you see the direction he's looking in, and you totally get it. Finally, you make your way over another set of hills and trees. The wooden platforms of the elf city appear in the distance. And you're indeed safe, just like the mighty HempAvenger had promised. And that HempAvenger, who may or may not have been a young Frank the Tank, would go on to save a great number of elves in the Fadark Forest, becoming a legend to maybe like 3 or 4 other people. The experiences here are unfortunately impossible to duplicate anymore, because so much of the gameplay relied on the fact that information was sparse. Help would be hard to find, and trust would need to be earned. I'm aware of the EverQuest Resurrection projects, attempts to bring back the old experience from the dead. In fact, these projects are likely thrown together by people just like me who even still have occasional withdrawals, and these guys are just chasing the dragon. While it was mostly a you had to be there kind of thing to get the full game experience, I do hope this helped maybe some younger viewers understand a little bit better how older gamers had any fun without all those modern additions. Truth be told, modern conveniences, at least in cases like this, actually prevent anything similar to this from really ever existing again, for better or worse. But the experiences will live on as awesome gaming memories for myself and those who helped me blaze those trails. This video is quite a bit different from my norm, so let me know what you think in the comments or hit me up in the Discord if you like. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.